Hey guys, welcome back. Well, it's been a while since I've done a video, so I've just been busy with lots of other stuff, so just haven't been in the mood to do many videos. But I thought actually this week would be a good one to do one. I've just posted my. I didn't get time to do the Jared Dines collab because I was quite busy. I had some shows coming up and all that, so I was getting ready for those. So I didn't get around to do that, but. I did post that as well this week, so check it out. Tell me what you think. There's been some phenomenal guitarists, so sometimes I just feel like, why bother? Because there's some ridiculously good guitarists out there. But anyway, I just do my thing. I've got my style and the way I play, and that's what it is. And there you go. Anyway, I am going to start doing a bit more content again. Just feeling motivated to do different kind of stuff, so I will be coming back with some content. Anyway, so what I wanted to do today, and without much further ado, is just talk about the new Metallica. So it's been a weird one, right? It's just been dropped on us like that. I seem to remember that they did the same thing on the previous album, and they went one step further where they just literally released everything as videos, over the course of a week or something. If my memory serves me well, it's been about 6-7 years now. But anyway, so suddenly out of nowhere, we've got a new Metallica track, a whole announcement of a new album, tour and everything. So I have to say one of the positive things, and I'll talk about positives and negatives in this review. And it's not a review, it's really my thoughts about it, really, about the new single. I think in this day and age, for a band of that size, to be able to keep things this quiet is pretty ridiculous. So the fact that they can do that just shows, I don't know, the team they've got around them must be absolutely phenomenal to keep things under wrap like that, because there was literally no words at all whatsoever. The other thing, it also shows how big a band Metallica actually is. Well, not that it's anyone's surprise, but how big a band it actually is, that they can literally keep it quiet, but they don't actually feel they need to do any kind of build-up towards it. Even if you take, the next in line would be somebody like Iron Maiden in the world of metal. They announced their new album months before it was released and released a single. But, there was a build-up. There was like the artwork release, and there was a little bit of a build-up. Nothing here. So, bam, we're just going to come in with everything in one go. And I have to say again, kudos to them. And it really does show what a big band they are, that they can afford to launch an album without really any proper PR, nothing, no build-up towards it whatsoever, apart from some hits that they've been working on new stuff. Anyway, so I think that's a really, I don't know whether it's a positive, it's more of an observation about how big a band actually Metallica is, and the fact that they can do stuff that's actually quite different to anybody else in terms of the promotion. They can just literally do that. Right. In terms of the song, so let's talk about the song. So Lux Aeterna, I'm not going to play the song here because if I do, I think the content's going to be taken down. So my first impression went very good. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think I'm the right audience for that anymore. Metallica was a big part of my teenage years growing up. Arguably, probably the most important band for me at that period of time for lots of different reasons. Obviously, musically, but also personally, it was the kind of band that carried a lot of us misfits teenagers out of our teenage years. Actually, people that were having maybe problems at home. Metallica was a band that you could sort of, relate to. So, definitely for me, I know I sound like a broken record, but for me, the first 4 records are untouchable as far as I'm concerned. The Black Album already, to me, I was starting to detach myself from it a little bit because I was more interested in the sort of technical abilities of musicians and songwriting, obviously, but also the technical, being able to play things that were technically challenging as well. So I guess for me, the Black Album just didn't work for me really that well. But I can see the appeal to it. I can see why it's still today one of the biggest selling albums of all time. The production was ridiculously good. So anyway, so I don't want to talk about too much about it. The first 4 albums, and to be fair, up to the Black Album, I think there was a real natural progression for the band, and it sort of all made sense. Even though I do always feel, and that's a different video, that the Black Album always felt like it was 2 steps, like they needed a couple of steps before it got to the Black Album, I always felt. So that's why I've always had a bit of an issue with that Black Album. There was no preparation. But hey, we just worked out Metallica doesn't prepare you for anything. Anyways, so what my thoughts about the song initially weren't great. They've gone down that sort of more rock and roll kind of songs that they've got. They've got a few of those on the previous album, which really didn't do it for me. I can definitely see the Kill 'Em All vibe in there. There's a middle section that literally sounds like the break in Kill 'Em All, which is fine. I have no issue with the band sort of, using their past musical endeavors to actually create something today. I think that's not a bad idea. There's if you're gonna plagiarize, but it's not really plagiarize, but influence yourself, you might as well influence from your own self. So I think that's not a problem at all. So I do think the song didn't really do it, but it's growing on me. I'll be honest with you. I've listened to it a few times since. It's catchy. The riffs are really catchy. The melody's pretty good. It's moving around pretty standard sort of Metallica sort of, chords and all that. So that's fine. The production, right, the production. It's a very good production, and it's a very modern production that serves Metallica well. I have to say that Metallica's obviously for a long period of time has suffered from really weird productions. Obviously, Saint Anger remains one, but even Death Magnetic, to me, that remains one of their best albums coming when they've come back doing the more metal stuff. Just because I thought the songs were fantastic on that one. And but yeah, sadly, really unlistenable because of the production. Hardware to Self-Destruct. I'm just gonna say, look, I've not really listened to it that much. It just didn't really grab me. It was long. It was over long. Not all the songs really did it for me. I don't know. It was just, and we'll come to the real bit where the Hardware didn't do it, which is the bit where I'm gonna say that I don't like this song as well for that reason. But anyway, but the production is very good here. The drums sound good, although I mean I've heard some people say he's not. I do think Lars is using some triggers here. On the fast double bass part, again, no, I'm not a Lars basher as such, but I'd be very surprised if he still can play that kind of double bass pattern, really, I'll be honest. And I was checking the speed of the song, it's clocking in around 240, and I'd be very, very doubtful his Lars can still play. He's a man pushing nearly 60, which is not a problem, because there are people of his age that are playing, Lombardo's about his age. But the difference is with Lars Ulrich is that he hasn't really kept up, we all know, his practice. So I'd be very surprised if he can pull that off live. And so that's why I do think there's an element of triggering. There's an element of very good editing as well. But the general drum sound is very good. The guitar sound is punchy, it's brilliant. Can hear the bass, although not very super clearly, but we can hear it's there, which is good. Then comes, so overall, I would say the song itself is growing on me. It's short and snappy, the kind of stuff you need for live. It's obviously going into their past a little bit, which is fine, never a big problem, especially when you're going back to more the thrash roots. But I think this is where my issue is with Metallica. It does feel that they're very often, it feels to me Metallica in some ways like really trying to justify things a little bit. Like there's always this thing, oh, they've come back. I always hear with Metallica, oh, they've come back to their thrash roots. Oh, they've come, and I'm like, well, why is it with Metallica we always feel that? And I personally feel it's because they just drifted so far away at one point that they spread themselves very, very thin. So every time they come back to this, you feel that you somehow feel you should thank them to come back to these sort of more thrash roots and all that. But I'm like, well, maybe perhaps at some point in the line of when they evolved, perhaps they should have realized that it wasn't the greatest of idea to move away that far away from what you started with, you could obviously go and explore things, but with that sort of, there's plenty of bands from that era that have gone and explored, but still kept, Megadeth being a good example, but still kept sort of their DNA in there. And I think with Metallica, the problem is sometimes it often feels that they lost their DNA along the way, and now they've been trying to get it back. And he always feels a little bit forced to me, and that's why it feels. Even here, it feels a bit forced. For such that none of the musicians, apart from Rob, even James struggles with the down picking like that these days. Lars struggles with that kind of drumming. So that's where to me it feels a little bit forced always, that they're trying to do something that actually technically they're not that capable of doing anymore, and maybe it's not really what they want to do. So that's the feeling I get. I could be completely wrong. Anyway, that's what I feel with that song, and I felt that with Hardwire as well, to Self-Destruct. It felt it was a band that was just trying a bit too hard to do something that they'd done before without reinventing anything. I get it, it's hard to reinvent yourself, but it just felt at the same time force. Let me give you another example. Maybe people will disagree and completely exploit me for this, but for instance, I don't feel what Anthrax is doing on their more recent album, I know they haven't done one in a while, it doesn't feel forced to me. It feels that there's an element of natural evolution. There's some elements of their thrash stuff, but at the same time, they mixed it up with the more the heavy metal side, which Anthrax always had. It always feels to me that they've managed to keep that. And that's a really good example. Check out the last Anthrax albums. You may not like them, but you can see it doesn't feel forced to me. That's the only thing. Anyway, now comes the bad part. And you probably were going to guess what it's going to be. What is Kirk doing? Again, seriously, I know people are going to say, oh, Kirk has got his sound. Do you know what? He does. And I'm not going to comment stylistically about what he does, the usage of what. I'm not going to comment on that. That's a stylistic choice. So he's absolutely, allowed to do whatever he wants from a stylistic point of view. There's no discussion about what he should do on that. That is his creative input. He's completely allowed to do that. The fact that he stays on the pentatonic, so what? Fine, that's not a problem. I mean, look, it's not great. I think he could do a bit more, but it's a stylistic choice that he's chosen. Since the Black Album, really, he's done that. Where my real issue comes in play here, whether you've chosen something more simplistic from a style point of view, it still doesn't excuse the lack of the bad performance. It doesn't exclude the fact that you should have more pride in the work you're doing. In the fact that the solo is, it really, I wouldn't be surprised if he came in, heard the track, plugged himself in, found the sound, did a take, and just went home. And that is unforgivable for a player of his stature, because I don't think that's the right mentality. He does have a duty of care. He does have the budget, the time. It's not like they're under any kind of time pressure to do this. They've got all the budget in the world. They literally got an ever-ending flow of money to come in to do this. Why is Kirk being allowed to come in there and just effectively just throw some ideas like that, just jam a few ideas, press the record button, and just go home? Why is Lars and James not going, no, you need to sit here, just like Bob Rock said, and I'll go back to that in the 90s when they were recording the Black Album, you will live and breathe this solo as long as it bloody takes. And that is my issue here with Kirk Hammett. All the other guys, you can really feel they spend the time on it. You can tell. Lars has gone in and spent some time recording these drums. He's not just gone and programmed drums. He's actually gone and played those drums, and he's done the best performance he can. James clearly, obviously, had a lot of work. Still, the man has got, the voice of the man is nearly 60 years old and he's still singing those kind of stuff. They've all done. Rob, I'm sure, has been very diligent. I do not understand why Kirk is being allowed, with the reputation he has, with the sort of, who he actually is, that he's allowed to come in there and literally just throw whatever it is without some kind of editing, without kind of editing himself, going, what, does that sound good? Like, does he not care that it doesn't sound good? Or is no one telling him that, mate, this doesn't sound good, do another take until, I can see what you stylistically want to do. That's absolutely fine, but it needs to still sound good. You can definitely make pentatonic licks and all that, but they need to sound good. And that is my biggest issue with the song. At the moment the solo comes in, it's just a real disappointment. Again, I want to repeat, I do not have an issue stylistically what he's trying to do. I understand he does that. Now, let me compare this. This is not, again, with the fact that I didn't particularly like the solos on the Black Album, but no one can say that those solos are not perfectly played. They are played really, really well. I'm listening to, I think, the solo of, Wherever I May Roam, not my favorite. So, Ever Enter Sandman, fantastically played. And then we know what Bob Rock did. He took a little bit of that bit of the solo, put that one, and put it all together. This is going back to the 90s when there was no, digital recording. So it was much harder to actually put things together. But he still did do it, and he still put that work in because Bob Rock pushed him to do that. And he does have some great solos on the album. The solo of The Unforgiven. If you've seen a year and a half in the life of Metallica, you all know what I'm talking about how long it took him to do that solo. Now here comes my real issue. Why is he not doing that? He did the same on Hardware Self-Destruct, and everybody ripped him apart for that. And guess what? Come 6 years later, he's doing the same thing. 6 years, 7 years, or something like that. That you're not even doing an album every year or every 2 years, that, you've got other things to do. My issue with Kirk is that I guess he's got other interests in life, which is fine, we all do. But your main gig, mate, is doing those solos. It's literally, we're not even asking you to play rhythm guitars on the album. Just come up with some solos, practice them, come and record them. You don't even have to practice them for hours because you can just keep punching little sections by section and put it all together. You can do that. It will sound so much better that it really, I feel at the point on that song, the whole thing just drops. And as a guitar teacher and a guitarist, for me, that already writes me off listening to that album because I know the solos are all going to be unlistenable like this. And that is the problem I have with this song. And again, I know it's a bit of a rant about Kirk, but I just think it's not really the right message to send to the younger generation. Hey, look at me, I'm Kirk Hammett, I can just do whatever I want, and it's absolutely fine. And people are still go, oh yeah, but it's Kirk. You recognize Kirk? Yeah, we can recognize Kirk. That's absolutely fine. But we could have recognized him even if it was a bit better played. The fact that there is a debate around it shows you that there's an issue. No one's actually on this one really commenting about Lars's drums. So the fact that there's a debate about this one, it does bother me. However, this brings me to my final point, and I'll leave you to it, and I've ranted off enough about this. My final point. Now, we may dislike Kirk solo, which I do. We may have some issues, people have some issues stylistically, but that's absolutely fine. You're absolutely right to, if you want to criticize this solo because you don't like it stylistically, that's absolutely fine. You're in your right to criticize. However, what you're not and shouldn't be doing, which is what I saw and that was pretty shocking, is being a YouTuber guitarist coming up and saying, his solo sucks, I can do a better one, let me record one. And then for having some of the main metal magazines to actually take that and advertise this particular player. I'm not going to name him, but I think that's absolutely ridiculous and it's extremely disrespectful to Kirk Hammett as well. Now, I know Kirk Hammett's got his issues, but I also think it's very disrespectful to go over an artist and go and say, your solo sucks, I can do a better solo than you, especially when, let's face it, mate, you're never going to have the career that Kirk Hammett's had. None of us are going to have that kind of a career. So you know what? That's not something to do. But more importantly, I don't think it's right for the metal press to then I've seen this on social media. I say, YouTubers come up with a better solo for that. What? No. That is not acceptable. We shouldn't be giving any oxygen to that. YouTubers stay where they are. Look, I do YouTube videos, but I'm never going to pretend I'm going to record something better than Kirk Hammett did. Because, I may think it, I may feel that I probably could, or if I spend more time on it, but I'm definitely not going to advertise that because I think that's so disrespectful to these people. It's disrespectful to anyone. You don't have to be Kirk Hammett. You don't have to have a career like Kirk Hammett to have done that. It's disrespectful. Let me give you an example just to finish this off, and I'll sign off. If any of you have watched the movie Amadeus about Mozart, there is a scene in there, I urge you to watch it, it's a great movie. There's a scene in there where Mozart comes in, he's going to be welcomed by the King of Austria, he comes in, and Anton Salieri, his apparently arch nemesis, who isn't yet, basically has written a piece of welcome for Mozart. He's written a great little piece of music for Mozart, which as he's coming in, I think the king is playing it or something, and then, they're all introduced. After a few minutes of introduction, the king says, this is Anton Salieri, the court's composer, and he wrote this piece for you. Would you like us to give you the chart so you can actually, no, I've memorized it all. What does Mozart do? He starts sitting down. He's obviously memorized it all, starts playing it, but what he does there, he starts correcting the piece. He starts going to Salieri, shouldn't that be this note? Or shouldn't that be that note? And you can see the poor Salieri's face, and you're thinking, well, you know what? I'm not surprised the man had a vendetta against him because it's disrespectful. I've written a piece of art which I thought was the correct thing. You come in there and just start changing it. Now, as much as I love Mozart, if this thing actually happened, which I'm sure it didn't, but you can clearly see there's an element of respect, mutual respect that should be there, or an element, and it wasn't there. And I can sort of, this situation really compare. When I saw this particular YouTuber appearing on like metal magazine say, he's done a better video. And let's face it, the solo doesn't fit the song. The one he's come up with doesn't fit the song. The point of the matter is, you may think it, but you're not in place to do that. Kirk Hammett is that. The job of telling Kirk Hammett to go and play a better solo is the rest of the band's job, and Kirk Hammett, for instance, it's not for any of us, any YouTuber especially, to go and say, that solo sucks, mine would have been better. Anyway, what do you guys all think about that? Till next time, stay safe and stay metal.